Chairman Gears.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Chris Brown.
Here.
John Brown.
Here.
All here, sir.
All right, thank you, Jerry. On the public hearing, well, we don't have anything underneath old business. So our new business is we have a public hearing from a request from Peter Jr. and Marta Ventura, owners of the building known as 4557 Montgomery Road and 2087 Sherman Avenue, book 651, partial 0026, page 0001, located within a general business district with a planned unit development overlay. It's a GBD/PUD. They're submitting both a preliminary and final minor plan to develop the existing building into a mixed-use property, including a banquet hall, conference center, office, business space, and residential spaces. With that being said, what we normally do is we have a representative from the request to come forward and kind of explain the project and what they have, and what they're requesting, and then if the commission has any questions, we ask the questions, and then what we'll do is we'll ask anyone in the audience who would want to speak in favor of it or speak against it. So Pete, it's all yours if you don't mind. What I need you to do is give me your name and address, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Pete Ventura Jr. I reside at 11229 Terwilligers Run Drive. That's in Montgomery, Ohio, 45249. But yeah, to go over the project here, this is the old Fidelity building, as you guys, I'm sure, know. We'd like the opportunity to turn it into a mixed-use building, basically, with a banquet hall on the first floor, as you can see. I want to say that can hold up to 300 people there. We're working on a little outdoor kind of patio portion there outside that space. So everything's labeled on there, but they would kind of turn the first floor of the 7-story into kind of, one's a catering kitchen there, but you got an off room for like a bride and groom if they had space, or you can also have a meeting space there, number 7, how those are labeled. But this design does incorporate the old vault into the space. So we plan on doing something with those and some nice lighting in there or something. But yeah, you get your general banquet hall, it's simply space on the first floor. Second and third floors of the front building, we were looking at office space there. If you see that on one of your, is it on one of those or no? Might just be open space.
Is that
Levels 2 and 3.
Yeah.
You see it there. So we're thinking office space there, and I'm thinking you can get somewhere in the range of 20 people per floor there, so I'm thinking 20 to 25, based off the square footage. So the back side of the 7-story building is, I think the design shows a residential side, but I still wanted to, I don't know if that's on there, if I could keep that open for a residential or office option there, possibly. Really, the plan is to kind of do this in 3 phases. Do the first floor, get that whole thing built out. That includes the exterior as well, have it looking really nice, where we can rent out the banquet hall, get some money flow, cash flow coming in. And then at the same time, get the second and third floors of the front building ready for an office tenant. So we need to white box it, get the HVAC in, water line, sprinkler, whatever is needed. And then after that is kind of rented, I plan on tackling the third phase is going to be the back side of the 7-story. So hopefully they go one after the other, which I think it will once it starts. So if you guys have any questions.
Sure, go right ahead.
We've been through this building before, through this commission. We've been through Allison School. Grand plans, big banners all over town, people putting their money in. How do we know it's not gonna happen again?
I mean, there's, I guess,
Let me ask, do you have your financing in hand?
yeah, it's me. I mean, I wouldn't do this if I didn't. I've built other businesses and built other buildings in the past for my business, and I wouldn't get into something if I wasn't going to finish it. Anything I've ever done, I mean, my name's going to be on it, so you know, nothing's guaranteed, but I think we're pretty close to that.
Are you
Yeah, go ahead.
gonna be taking any of the other businesses on Montgomery Road south?
Taking what?
Any of the other buildings?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. I know they get the old surplus store there, I want to say, and then the Veterans Center. So you know, Norwood. I grew up here. I'm from the area. I know it really well. So I think there's an opportunity here. The housing stock's already, getting better. Prices are going up, and I think the Montgomery corridor is a big issue for everybody. So, I was talking to some people. I think it could be one of the first or second dominoes to fall along there. I think we had a nice building there that looked presentable from the outside. Something to be proud of, that it should help the rest of the block and the rest of the street for that part. So, it's my 2 cents.
I was just going to say, I think, kind of to comment on it, I think a big part of the difference is compared to the other locations you mentioned, John, they already own the building. So some of them the other ones had an option to purchase the building or whatever, and they never could come up with enough capital to get it done. So I would just say I think that's a big plus as far as I'm concerned. They already have it, so I can't picture knowing them that they would purchase something and leave it set empty forever. So
I just want to throw it
Yeah.
out there because
No, I
people
got-
have memories.
I understand. We've been through it with a handful of them, so.
Mr. Ventura, can you touch on to ease some, those legitimate concerns? Can you touch on your business connections in Norwood? I know you're from here and everything, and you've rehabbed some property and everything. Can you give a kind of a brief description of your businesses, where you're located at, and and the extent of your business, so it can be made clear that you see where I'm coming from? Just so there's a background, so people.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I grew up in Norwood. I think we moved here when I was 3 years old. Grew up down on Forest Avenue. So at the time I went to Gressley. It was the Catholic school in town. Later became Holy Trinity, as they all merged. But I went to Purcell Marion for high school. Didn't move out of the area until I was basically 18 and off to college, where I went to Miami University in Oxford. But I've always, growing up here and being around the people and knowing everyone, getting to know people, I'm very fond of Norwood, and would always looking for an opportunity to give back if I could one day. But my background, I started a logistics company with a couple other Norwood guys, family members of mine. One's a cousin, one's an uncle. But we started that about 12 years ago, and then took it to our headquarters out now in Blue Ash. We've been in 3 or 4 different places. So we have a couple other offices as well now in Tampa, Nashville, Charleston, but we're up to 500 employees total. So it's come a long way. So we've been through quite a bit of. I've dealt with a lot of municipalities, different cities. Every time we open up an office, I'm talking to the person in Tampa, the economic development person. We opened an office in Dayton. We just did one in Denver in April. So I'm dealing with people in all walks of life as well, from where you guys are coming from. So I know kind of what we're getting into and what you're looking for as well. But grew up in this area. We've come a long way. On the housing side of things, kind of started as a hobby, but we started buying houses in Norwood and flipping them, putting money into them, and getting a new buyer for them. So I've probably done a dozen of those houses over the last 3 years as I've started to get into that. More and more houses every year. So basically taking old dilapidated properties all around Norwood. I mean, 90% of what we do is in Norwood, and then at least doubling the value on every single one of them. And getting in a nice family as well. But that's where I'm at now. I saw this property was available. I've always liked it. I grew up here. I know it well. So I figured this may be a good opportunity to help Norwood, help myself, help, to pull this off.
So basically what I wanted to kind of extract from you is your business background, your success in business, and what your history is. Mm-hmm. Because Mr. Brown hit a valid point. We've had some people that is, let's put it this way, it's not worked out well. And so I thought it would be good for you to clarify your business background, your local background, and your family name in order to invest in our city. That was the idea of my question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's vitally important, especially in this community nowadays. Mm-hmm. That before something is automatically granted, that we do our due diligence too, and it's made clear on what your background is and what your business success has been. So in order for that in your local things, so it translates into a successful development here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so, and I think it's I've learned even with our building we just built, we lease half the building, we leased out the other half. So I know the office market too, and I'm very confident that this is going to rent very fast over here as well, and I think it's going to be really successful.
Do you know, I've heard comments before, do you know, what would you call this, an event center, or what would this be, a reception center?
I think it's like an assembly space, technically.
Assembly space.
I want to say.
What is your closest? I've always heard there's nothing close around here since they closed the hall up at St. Pete's.
Yeah.
So I don't know how close the next reception hall is.
As far as Norwood, I'm not sure of another one. I know the old hotel used to have one, right? In there, they used to have a space like that. But
I don't know even in Cincinnati where the
it's downtown. It's kind of funny when
Evendale.
For my business too, we rent out. We do a Christmas party every year. So every year we're hunting down assemblies. We're trying to find places. Okay, we need to hold 200. We need to hold 400. We need to hold 500. So I've learned as well that part of the business, and it's very hard. You got to book weddings. You got to book everything at least a year out, if not a year and a half, 2 years out now. So there's not enough of these spaces from the research I've done, especially in this area.
And here's one is Raffles on Blue Ash on Ralph Cornell.
Yeah, I think that was my point. There's nothing.
We were there, weren't we?
Yeah, we were there on more than one occasion. But it's that was my point to say that there's nothing really available that close. Mm-hmm. that can be leased out or rented for.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely took that into effect. If there was 3 of these in the city, I wouldn't be doing it. I think that it's cool with the novelty of the old bank in there and the vault, and we're gonna make it a really nice facility. So I think it'll play well.
And Mr. Ventura, what is your timeline in terms of bringing this project to fruition? You mentioned the 3 phases. Let's focus on phase 1. When do you anticipate beginning phase 1, and how long do you anticipate that needing to be constructed before you can open up this center?
Well, as soon as I get approval, if I can get approval on this, it's going to start moving right away. I've already have the architect in hand. I've spent a lot of money drawing up plans and getting it ready for permits. So it's already in the works. So So as soon as I got approval, I mean, I'm gonna bid this thing out and get it rocking and rolling. My goal would be to have, I think I could have an event in like the second quarter of 2020. I was pushing for December this year was when I got into this, and you know, everything takes a little longer than you think, I think maybe, but I think by the spring of 2020 is when I want to finish it and be able to like book events for that time period.
And do you have your financing secured or at least identified for this first phase?
Yes.
And is this going to be through a traditional loan through a bank, or is this going to be a combination of personal financing as well as loans and other sources?
It'll be a combination of personal finances and a bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
I know I have to say this, I'm required. We talked about the condos, and I'd love to see that condo. I'd love to hit that top floor, but it's not my money, it's yours. But I'd still.
Yeah, when I walked up that 7-story, it's laid out perfect for like a 2-bedroom condo or a nice, really nice 1-bedroom or something. It's got a good layout for it with the windows
yeah.
and the view and everything.
I think it'd be.
Yeah.
And you made the fact that you wanted the top floor, so that would knock me out. But I think it, and I don't. There's probably a return on investment is probably not that much. But the way everybody, some people got suckered into Allison Avenue, but there's a lot of people my age and some younger that are looking. They want to stay here. They don't necessarily want to rent, but they like the condo theory. But if there's nothing, if there's no return on it, and I understand the financing is different and all that, but
Yeah, I think you definitely see the younger, even the millennials moving into more of the condo. They don't want the yards and they want it simple. I mean, just Uber here and there and get around easy for sure.
but I'm sure that's probably gone. But sure would like to see something pop up, but
Yeah.
so be it.
Any other questions? No. All right, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate it, Pete. All right, with everything, with them giving an explanation, part of the public hearing, I would ask anyone who wants to speak in favor of the change, please come forward, and I just need you to state your name and your address, and you have time to speak in favor of it. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of the project, I say, please come forward, and you'll have some time to speak.
And I'm really more informational than in favor. I mean, I am in favor of redeveloping the building, obviously, and I think the plan looks good. My name is Bill Krugstens. I live at 615 Monroe Street in Newport, Kentucky. I own the building, the Liberty Isles building. It's adjacent, and Pete and I share our parking lot, some of that parking lot.
That's right behind, really, that's
Correct,
all
and
Lawrence or Sherman or between the two.
Correct.
Okay.
And
All right.
I'm working with him a little bit, and we've gone back and forth a little. I haven't really talked to him too much, actually, but about some of my excess parking for him to use there. But that does only equal about 30 spaces. And I've asked where the other parking is going to be, because it is 300 people, which is a lot. So I just sort of I would like that addressed, because I've had issues with another parking lot that I own in back of there, and disputes on spaces, and it's, you can't, if there's going to be 300 people, say 150 cars, if you don't have a place to park, they're going to go and park in the lot that is closest there. And I don't want that to become a problem if he hasn't identified that source at this point. So that's...
And sir, before you leave, just for clarification, when are your business hours for the dialysis, if you know? When do they need their parking lots?
Yeah, so they go from 7, I guess, till I'm not exactly sure on the hours, but
Okay.
they go till Saturday. They go Saturdays through Monday through Saturdays.
Is it primarily during the day, or do they have evening hours as well? If you know.
I think they're not. I don't think they're open late, but I'm not exactly
Okay.
sure. Part of the concern, though, is if this is an approved use, it's not going to be restricted on hours. So if it turns to a different use, it's an assembly use, which is the most aggressive from a capacity standpoint. It's a limited area, so I just needed that address. I know there's some parking lots across the street. Hopefully, there could be some agreements there.
Sure.
And once again, I think it would be great. I tried to develop it for years. I could never figure it out. So it's good to see somebody figuring out a good use for it.
And the idea is to work with you as neighbors.
Yeah, and I don't have the capacity to give him enough because I have
Right.
I have assigned to the leaseholder, and I cannot. There's only so much I can do in that case.
I understand that.
So I'm willing, and we've talked about what's available that I can work with him on, and we have done that. But it's still a small percentage of the parking that would be needed.
I understand.
Yep. Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I would just say, we have had discussions about the 2 lots with the developer. So the city lots, about, that they're available, that they could use, just to let you know.
But will he have the right to those lots? Has an agreement been worked out?
They are city lots, so they're public lots, but they're available for anyone. And if you go by most of the time now, they're very seldom used at night. Right now, where they're really used the most is for the construction workers that are working on the school over there.
And I think it would be a great use of a city lot. It would just be, for me, it would be helpful if the city would enter an agreement with him so that he's guaranteed those spaces.
And I don't know, I've never ran a facility, but I would imagine most of his business will be after hours. And the way I understand it, and I may be wrong, is the dialysis center is not much, there's not much going on after 5 o'clock. Now,
And
whether
that very well could
whether
be
that's
the
true or
case,
not,
yeah.
I have no knowledge.
And my only issue is I don't have a choice. I cannot allow people to use the lot because of my lease is already committed, and I can't use those as flex spots. I don't have that ability in my lease, so I couldn't provide those even if I would like to.
And like I said before, the idea is to promote the development, but not to the detriment of another business or a community.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I think a key point that must be brought up with respect to parking is we are seeing the shift in how people get around. Especially for an event center, it's more likely that they're going to be using some type of car service, whether it's Uber or Lyft, because as pointed in the plans, there is a bar, and I would suspect people will actually want to enjoy the bar, and they'll be using a car service instead of using a personal vehicle. So the numbers might not be as much as...
But it is 300 space. It is 300 people for something that doesn't have adequate parking.
Right. Understood.
I'd like to point that out. That's a substantial difference.
Okay?
But thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the project? All right. We'll move into the next part. Anyone who would like to speak against the project, please come forward and give us your name and address. Anyone who would like to speak against the project, please come forward and give us your name and address, please. Anyone who'd like to speak against the project, please come forward. Since we've had no one come forward to speak against the project, I would like to have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to
All
close.
right, John, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Chris? All right, would you mind calling the roll, Jerry?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Gears,
Yes.
Chris Brown,
Yes.
John Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Since the public hearing is closed, what we will do is move into our regular meeting. And if we can, do you mind doing a roll call so we have a record of the meeting?
Yes. Mayor Williams,
Here.
Chairman Gears,
Here?
Chris Brown,
Here.
John Brown.
Yep.
All in presence.
All right, thank you, Jerry. The first order of business we have is we've got the minutes from our July 11th, 2018 meeting. And if everyone had a chance to read them over. If there's no additions or corrections, do I hear a motion to accept them as if read?
I'll move to accept as if read.
Second.
All right, Chris made the first and John made the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. It's almost hard to believe it's been a year. But, all right, with that, we'll move into our new business. And the first item is Peter Jr. and Miranda Ventura, owners of the building known as 4557 Montgomery Road and 2087 Sherman Avenue, Book 651, partial 0026, page 0001, located within a general business district with a plan unit development overlay. GBD/PUD is submitting both preliminary and final minor plans to develop the existing building into a mixed-use property, including a banquet hall, parentheses, conference center, office business space, and residential spaces. We have any comments, questions, or? On that?
I think that most of the comments and questions were aired at the public hearing. I think we have a wonderful project here that's very creative in terms of using an existing building, preserving the character of an historic building and the 7 stories, using it to its full potential and not seeing it as a detriment to the front building on Montgomery Road. At the same time, we have had histories and concerns about developers with grand visions coming in and selling us something that doesn't bear fruit. But given the history and background of Mr. Ventura and his financing and ability, those concerns should be noted, but I don't think that they should be prevent us from going ahead and approving and letting him go forth with the project.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And I would just say, I know it's been empty for quite a while, and it basically has been an eyesore. And I think the last known activity was over there is when the water lines froze up in the winter and there was water coming down the steps of the old office building. So I agree. It would be a great improvement. I know in the past we've heard different grumblings or talks about, well, maybe we ought to tear it down and put a drive-through there or put a carry-out or whatever, and which we kind of all just shook our heads at. First of all, just the traffic on the corner and all the traffic in that, but I agree this is a perfect use, taking care of a good building. And I think a general area like that is needed within the city. And as I said, the concern about parking, we have had discussions with them about the city lots and that, of that being available after hours, so on and so forth. So, you know, I think that all can be worked out. So I think it's a great use for the area also.
You know, Mr. Gears, I remember we we've been fighting all along to hold on to that building because there'd been a couple of efforts to tear down the Fidelity Federal. And we was gonna fight that as hard as we could. At one time, I think somebody wanted to tear it down to put a donut shop in there. Now, you know, we'd have hit rock bottom had we done something stupid like that. And I think they'd have picked up 5 or 6 spaces. So you're gonna tear down a building that's been around as long as it has and is basically a landmark, that intersection, and put a donut shop in. So, John is a former police officer, you would have probably liked that, but what he's talking about doing now isn't exactly what is really needed around here. And he's got enough business sense to understand that a facility like that is needed and it'll get used. So I look forward to see its completion.
I will also note, Mr. Gears, that the owner, Mr. Ventura, has already put money into the property with the windows and the roof, so he has already invested into the property. He's basically asking us to allow him to fulfill its full potential.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Chris. Any other comments or questions? I'd make the motion that we approve the project.
Second.
Any discussion? Jerry, do you mind calling the roll, please?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Gears,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Chris Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and I'll create a memo to go to council because they'll have to hold their hearing then for the
Okay.
preliminary and public,
All right.
preliminary and final development.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Pete. Next we have Tom Rowe with Terex LLC, applicant submitting application for a lot split on the property known as 3765 Montgomery Road, book 651, page 0054, partial 0098. If you want to come forward and explain to the commission what you got going on or why.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Rowe with Terex Development. We are the developer of the ongoing development at University Station for Danemont Square, who is the ground lessor from XU Propco. We are working on the continued development of the project. To do so, we're going to be talking about a minor PD amendment today as well, but to effectuate the continued development, it's all under one parcel today, meaning that entire property is one complete parcel that's encumbered by new market tax credits that were used to finance the first part of that development there. So in order to be able to finance the continued development, we need to separate the parcels, which will allow a lender to get a mortgage on the property and will not encumber the new market tax credit project across the street.
Okay. Any questions?
Not on the
comments?
lot split.
Okay. All right. With that being said, if there's no questions, we want to take action to approve the lot split.
I'll make a motion that it be granted.
I'll second.
All right, we got a second on it. Any discussion? If not, Jerry, do you mind calling the roll, please?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Gears,
Yes.
Chris Brown,
Yes.
and John Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next we have Tom Rowe with Terex LLC is applicant submitting a minor amendment plan unit development application for the property known as 3765 Montgomery Road, book 651, page 0054, partial 0098. The floor is yours, Tom.
Thank you, gentlemen. Again, my name is Tom Rowe with Terex LLC. We are the developer for Danemont Square LLC, the ground lessor of the property from XU Propco. The minor amendment put before you today would change the site plan that was formally approved by the City of Norwood to change the property that's currently noted as a hotel, I believe a four-story hotel, and change that to a four-story student housing project. And if I'll give you a little background, the developer that preceded me worked with at least 3 different hotel developers to try to get a hotel developed as part of the project. We've been on board now for over a year. I've personally worked with 2 different hotel owner-operators to try to get the project developed as a hotel, because that's at least what the university would really have liked to have seen. And the challenge is just with the location of that project being inboard to the development. It doesn't have any real visibility to the outside world. And then you've also got the new development of hotels right along the I-71 corridor that are much more evident to the traveler and much more accessible. So we talked to ownership. We don't believe that a hotel is viable there, and we started exploring other options. It seemed to make sense given the strong leasing of the existing student housing that's across the street, that additional student housing is certainly supported in the market and would be successful in that project and would help us continue to build the project out, because it continues. While the first part of the project is very nice, it was done well, there's still a lot of vacant land there that needs to be developed, and so we'd like to continue that that momentum and continue the development with a 4-story student housing building on the former hotel site.
Okay.
What you're asking for is a change from hotel to student housing.
Right.
That's correct, Mr. Brown.
Basically, all these square footage the same,
The
no additional parking needed.
Pretty close, John.
I think we submitted some plans. The square footage is up a little bit. We're planning on 49 units with 123 beds. The total square footage of the building will be
That's 64,446.
yes, sir.
Had a boy, John.
And I think it was shown with, it didn't actually give a square footage for the hotel, it gave a square footage for the potential office expansion that would have only been 2 levels at 30,000 feet.
And the design will be consistent with the existing student housing in that area, very similar.
Yeah, we're working with M&A Architecture. They've been very creative in their approach. We actually asked them to build a sister, not a twin, meaning just because you want to create an environment of an urban built-out environment where everything's not exactly the same.
Right.
So we wanted some variability, but we're using very similar materials. Color palette will be similar. We even factored in what's going on across the street with the hub building that Xavier's currently building. And so we tried to think about all those factors as it was being developed in terms of where the front door is, and they put a lot of thought and energy into making sure that it'll work together as one development.
And you'll have the front door being on the Lexington extension?
That's correct.
Okay. My only comment, and maybe these plans are still fluid, you show on your plan A2 a proposed trash enclosure basically fronting on Lexington instead of the parking lot. And just from an appearance standpoint, were you creating this urban streetscape to have a dumpster enclosure right there along your streetscape may not be as appropriate as actually having your dumpster enclosure be on your parking lot.
So it's interesting you say that. As a developer, I don't want to see it either. The challenge that we had was that there's an existing dumpster enclosure that services the office buildings that are on that parking lot. We had originally pushed to share that dumpster with the office buildings, and the property management firm that manages the office buildings did not feel that that would work out very well. So we're actually having M&A design the enclosure, Mr. Brown, to make sure that it is nice and is not a negative to the overall appearance. We hope that you won't even notice it.
I guess the other question is then will the dumpster be accessed from Lexington then? Is that their intent, or is it coming in from the parking lot?
It would be access from Lexington because there
Okay.
is no access from the parking lot. I believe it'll be a rollout and then it'll be a tip up into the trash.
It just doesn't, from a design standpoint and from a project standpoint, make sense. You have this beautiful, what you're trying to do is create a main street, and then you've got this big dumpster. I don't know if it just doesn't, it kind of is a very big wart on an otherwise nice project.
We don't disagree, but we are, I can tell you just from the budget that we just went through in the last week, it's a $10,000 dumpster enclosure. You know, so meaning we're spending a lot of money to make sure that it looks very nice. We, as the developer, we stress this on not only on the front of using the office dumpster, potentially expanding that. We also looked at pushing the trash all the way across the street into the Phase 1 property, and the residential property management firm almost had a heart attack when we proposed that. And unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of places to put it. It was it's the one place where we could hide it between the two buildings, and your point is well taken relative to it being visible from Lexington, but I can tell you that our focus is to make sure that it is screened appropriately so that it won't stand out as such.
How far setback is it from the sidewalk and the parking lot, or the right-of-way of Lexington?
I'd be lying if I gave you a dimension. I would say approximately 10 feet.
Okay, and then are you proposing landscaping? Are you able to landscape in front of it, or do you need that open so that the trucks can access it?
It'll have to be open so that it can be rolled out. It'll be gated though, meaning it's going to have gates that close in front of it to screen it from the street. Those gates will be of the same character as the building itself.
Are you intending to like camouflage and maybe make it look like something else besides a dumpster enclosure, or do you have any plans for it?
They are working on the design for it right now. Our intention would be to use siding of the same character and type used on the building so that it kind of blends away, if you will. I get it.
Along that dumpster issue, which Chris has got a good point. You know, when they say the gate's closed, but if you don't have any, if they don't close the gates, what difference makes? So we got to make sure whoever responsibility is it, and I don't want to see 2 months from now or 3 after it's open, some individual, some rocket scientist who's got the job of closing the gate, closes the gate.
We're using, Dynamont has hired Uptown Rentals to manage the property. They do a very tight, nice job of managing the grounds. Well, not only do we have the property management firm that's responsible for the residential property, but there's also a property management firm that oversees the whole project, meaning they make sure all the landscaping looks nice, that the trash is picked up, that that all the mulch is done. And so there's really 2 layers of oversight here, and I certainly note your concern and will make them very well aware of it. I'll be driving by.
Sure done a good job out on Montgomery Road, that was, landscaping and those flowers and everything. That looks fantastic. That looks really good. It's a really nice improvement. And believe it or not, there's somebody who's down there that actually gave it a compliment. So, that's good. Now, can I raise one issue? How many apartments will be in there?
There will be 49 apartments.
49 apartments. Now, as far as Mr. Stoker or Mark, whoever can answer this question, or John, if that's 49 apartments, will this have a positive effect? See where I'm coming from on student rental in that area? If the student rental in that area, between the building that's there now and the additional building, are we getting to the point where it has an effect on the student rental property down there that maybe it may not be as lucrative, and some investors who want to rent the student housing might decide to list those properties and convert them to one family. How close do you think, John, are we to that point where a student housing increases?
I know that just one property that I know of, gentleman bought it. He bought it to rehab, to rent to students. Couldn't get any takers. Tried to sell it. It's been through 3 real estate companies in the last 6 months. Because obviously, I guess, I don't think you have the influx, I don't live in the area. I don't think you have the influx of students living in that general area like we did, say, 5-10 years ago. That's my opinion only,
What?
Like I said, if people that live around that area may know more than I do.
What?
Mayor,
Yes.
I think that John's exactly right. Just to add, dovetail into that, the previous applicant that we had here, Mr. Ventura, you've heard him say over the last 3 years, he's had a dozen homes where they've purchased them, rehabbed them, and then sold them for a nice profit, got good families come in. I got a feeling that this is what's going to occur, and John may want to tune in with this, but since he's in the real estate business, but I believe that that's what's going to occur on these. You'll have these buildings that were used for maybe 4 or 5 students, and they'll be converted probably into single-family homes over time.
So then, I guess what I'm getting at, I hope you don't mind.
Please.
I guess what I'm getting at. Okay, so there was supposed to be an office building there, and there was supposed to be a hotel there, which the hotel would, the flags wouldn't take it because their occupancy rate wouldn't match the investment. So if the student housing goes up and it's centralized and not dispersed throughout the neighborhood, although we say, well, we're not bringing in any earnings tax and everything. Well, no, but sometimes you have to do things that may not bring in earnings tax, but will, increase the viability of the neighborhood. In other words, if these investors can say, I can't rent it, I can't do this, or they're, renting to the little darlings is a pain, and so I think I want to sell it because I'm not getting a return on my investment. So actually in that area, sometimes it might be best to encourage student housing because it's out of the neighborhoods. And if they get all blammed up and raise each other, wake each other at night, I could care less,
Well, I wish Pete was still here because he knows also about the student housing in that area. The prices that is being commanded now in South Norwood, it doesn't make sense to rent it. When you can put some money into it, clean it up, you're gonna turn around and make a profit. Anything south of Smith Road, east of Montgomery, and with the Wasson Way project coming in, you're just gonna have more people coming in that area.
Mayor, I think that it actually does, from my vantage point, it actually does bring earnings tax in. And how it does it is not by the apartments, but the conversion of the student housing into single-family homes where you'll have homeowners that actually have jobs that will be paying earnings tax to the city. So I would look at it as it does. It does increase it that way. It does.
So I should encourage you and Bernie to start building more student housing in that area and help us with our neighborhoods, because we hear that all the time, and some of those people, they love living there, and yet on the other hand, so if the prices rise, the market works, the landlords will diverse themselves as a pain, and if they can't rent it or can't get a return or there's too much problem, convert to a single family home. So I'm glad that that you people that know agree. So that's one of the reasons, because I know, why are you letting them get away with that? Well, I'll tell you why we're letting them, because it'll work out best for the city in the long run. So
I would just comment, if as one of the signs that things there are getting a lot better. Just recently, one of the re-renovated homes on Clenny Avenue on a corner is on the market for $500,000. And that says a lot. Knock on wood, yes. But, I mean,
It says that Tom Williams couldn't afford to live here.
I think
So-
also too, with respect to what they're doing is, there's the converting of existing student housing back to single family.
Right.
But more importantly, the likelihood of when a house comes on the market that it goes to student housing.
correct.
That dropped off probably 2 or 3 years. When those houses went up, they're going to be sold to families.
Yes.
And that's before the bike path and before all the other good stuff that is coming down in that area. One of the concerns I do have though is Xavier projecting any increase in enrollment so that this is sustainable, so that you are able to meet the market demand for the student housing, because it's a fixed population? I know that Xavier's anticipating building a new dorm on their campus contemporaneously with their project that's going to be next to Bellarmine Chapel. Is that eating it all into your expectations of renting it, or is that a different class that they're hoping to absorb onto the campus?
So we've obviously done a lot of work on understanding the market before committing to do a project. And admittedly, this project, while significant, isn't a monster. You know, the project across the street has over 400 beds in it, so this is a relatively small increment to that. Based upon our work with understanding Xavier's student body and the growth that they've experienced, you know, this project is going to be absorbed just within the growth that they've seen. They are building additional student housing to keep their students on campus at least through freshman and sophomore year, and we understand that, and the numbers all work. We believe, meaning Terex believes, there's demand for at least another 200 beds in that market, if not more. Now, and we're going to continue to work on other projects, you know, adjacent to campus to try to build additional inventory. But we've looked at the numbers, and this is I don't want to say no-brainer. I mean, there's always risk associated with real estate development, the biggest risk of which is timing, meaning this project needs to be completed next August so that those students can move in. Otherwise, you have to wait a year for the next school year, and it can be, and it's devastating if we don't hit it. But this is a relatively modest-sized project that should do very well. We're able to capitalize on the operating efficiency across the street. You know, it's just a neat little project.
And somebody was just telling me the other day how urgent it was. Maybe I'm mistaken. I might have misunderstood it.
Mr. Sewer is very well aware of how urgent things are.
I know, I
I'm
think
sure.
he conveyed that to me one time. So I don't see how this can be anything else but a good idea.
Right.
It's a no-brainer.
Just really one final question for me. The, what do you want to say? What's the rental percentage on the Phase 1 facility? I mean, is it normally 100% rented during school?
It's normal, well, it is 100% rented every year,
Okay.
and it's rented up months in advance.
Okay.
Yeah. They're
Is that
turning
the
people away.
That's, I mean, to me, that's the positive sign where if you said, well, it's 50% rented, you know, you'd have to look and go, why are you doing this? But no, okay. I just wanted it
Yeah.
for the record. And for
All the
anyone
market
who's
statistics
listening
show
to
that
know
this-
And as you say, it's well maintained. And really, the only time I see really the dumpster problem is when school's out. I mean, that's when, and it's amazing. They buy all this stuff for the year, but nobody takes it home with it. They just throw it in the dumpsters. I see that both on campus and even during the original building that's there. So I think it's a big asset. Any other questions, comments?
I make a motion the amendment be approved.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on that? If not, Jerry, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Gears,
Yes.
John Brown,
Yes.
Chris Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Jerry, thank you, Tom, thank you, Bernie, and good luck, and when's groundbreaking?
July,
We-
August.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Stoker, we had talked about an easement.
Right.
Do we need to, do I need?
I will go ahead and bring it up now and just discuss it with him, because it's usually, I'll let you talk about it, but basically with the easement that Tom's going to talk about is when it's not really for us, it's just and it's an electrical easement for some, I believe, some lighting out there, is that right?
It's the parking meters that are being.
Parking meters that are being removed. We don't really control that, and he's working with Duke Energy in regards to that easement. I have no objections to having the easement removed. It's
Where are
not,
the-
it's
where are
not
the
an
parking
easement for us.
On Lexington?
Oh, okay.
And then I gave you one of these so you could actually see the area that we're talking about modifying. It's just modifying
All
that
right.
red area.
That's the area in front of the new facility, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is the existing,
Right.
this is the hub building over here.
okay,
It's just, and it's removing it down to 2 feet, so there's still an easement there if it's needed in the future for it's just underground electric that's there today.
okay.
Yeah, there's nothing else there, Joe, and there was no utilities that we have.
Okay, so it
We
really,
don't have anything on this, do we?
all we can,
Yeah. And I told Tom, I said, I really don't think that we'd have any type of objection to something like that.
no,
This is the actual plat. I copied this from it and it
Okay.
shows.
We approve easements.
so there's really no
Well,
change.
it's a vacation, the title company brought this up and that's why.
Yeah, it's more of a vacation of the easement, even though we never really had anything of our own in
Okay.
it. You know, and I can sign off on behalf of the planning commission as long as we agree that there's no issue with vacating the easement.
I would make a motion, we vacate the easement in that area.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, do you mind calling a roll, Jerry, please?
Mayor Williams?
Yes.
Chairman Gears?
Yes?
Chris Brown?
Yes.
John Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Now
Thank
get out
you.
of your hair.
Please.
I'll get out of
No,
your hair.
That's all right.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Good
Thanks,
luck.
Tom.
Appreciate it.
Take care,
See you,
Mr.
Tom.
Sewer.
See you, Jerry.
See you, Joe.
They weren't.
See
All right, thank yous.
you, Bernie.
Huh?
Yeah.
I came for a speaking part.
Doing that side,
on
I've heard your speech before. Good. It's in my head. We gotta do something I can't do.
Come on up. We haven't moved on yet, so
Bernie
it's still
Sewer.
yours.
2554 Indian Mound. One of the things this does with more density, you may not know this, but as an owner, our retail is struggling. The more density we have on that campus, and the hub is really going to help us. And I think this is just additional density of folks to help the retail and to get more excitement in that retail section, which has been our focus. And I'm thrilled you mentioned the flowers. Our asset manager, that was her doing.
It looks great.
She said,
Looks nice.
job, right, Kyle? She said, we have to brighten this up.
It
So,
does.
Anyway, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Can I ask you a question though, being as you're talking about retail? Far be it to me to criticize, but how many people do you think from Connecticut, eastern states, like chili? And how many people from Connecticut and all over like ice cream? I mean, you see what I'm saying? I mean,
And I will tell you this, our retail studies say less than 25% of that retail will be supported by the university. We need to have retail that is good for that Evanston, Norwood community. So that, and we've got Equity, a new broker that we're working with. So I think the answer to the question is we can't just find, retail that supports just the university. It's just not big enough. It's not a University of Cincinnati. Now they can, go ahead.
I mean, so you're doing a survey to see what would work in that area?
We have done that, and we know that we need to find the right retail. Actually, Tom ran the study with a retail expert. I'm not the retail expert. I pour concrete for a living.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
you do a really good job. But no, that's what was concerning me, because I know you go up there and there's nobody there. So I don't know what brings them in.
We're going to find the answer. I mean, the owners are committed to it, so
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sewer.
thank you.
All
Thank you, board. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, well, we have no old business. We had two communications, and they were in your packets. First one being an email from Councilwoman Leslie Stevenson dated April 15th, 2019, with attachments requesting the Planning Commission consider council's intent to have a public discussion of murals, and request that the Planning Commission set a date and an evening time to discuss the topic. I'm open for comments and suggestions from the commission on that request.
I've had a conversation with a member of council, and I know this is important to some people. I believe it's going to be a difficult subject to approach. Because I don't know, because what you're going to hear, and I think I've said this before, is, do you regulate it? And if you say, we're going to regulate it, where do we go from there? How bad are we to say that we're going to regulate it, and everybody gets off mad saying, where's government get off regulating what we paint? And so I think I would respectfully request that the members of the commission and yourself and Mark and some other people do some thinking about this, and if we can, do some research, and then decide on sometime, August or so. But I did say that it's a very important subject, and I'm not so sure of the daytime. And I hate to volunteer, this commission to be at night, and see what had. Now, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have a room full of people that are going to be in support of it. And you're going to have to go through that, or you're going to have a room full of people that are going to be against it. But I think we ought to explore the options and maybe have some discussions with the legal department. And so, because I've heard, the paint doesn't hold up, and it doesn't do this, and it doesn't do that, and the content, and I don't know, it's a tricky road to go down regulating content, I think.
Well, you can't.
See, and that's, therein could be, thank you, Chris, therein could be the issue, if you can't regulate it.
I think that the key question becomes, and what we struggle with as the BZA is, what is a sign and what is art? I'm of the opinion that murals, quote unquote, is not regulated at all by the sign code. But what we've come to as a compromise at the BZA is they treat it as anything. There is a prohibition against painting signs on buildings. If someone were to propose a sign, they receive a letter saying that they can't go forward with it, and they can request a variance from the BZA. And the BZA, after a public hearing, the times that they've been presented, Lydia's house, when they were renovating, they had their murals on the windows, and the Yard, or BJ's restaurant, when they came forward with their artwork, we've had a public hearing, and after the public hearing, the BZA granted those applications. That seems to work. It gives an opportunity for people to have a hearing. We don't discuss content at all. Primarily what we look at is the things that we can, the durability, the maintenance, those issues. When it comes to what the message is to be conveyed, we can't touch that. If somebody wants to put a mural on their building that is of something that other people might not agree with, well, we can't say you can't because you don't like the message that's being conveyed. Now granted, you can't put nudity or anything like that, but for the most part, just think of something that's questionable that people might not want.
Like a picture of Adolf Hitler.
Well,
Or something. I'm trying to think something that's not.
or
it's
a
not
Dukes of
nudity, but
Hazzard
something that's-
mural with the General Lee and
Yeah.
and all those
Right.
things. Some people might not find that offensive, other people might find it in good taste. We can't regulate it. We can say how big it is, we can say what type of materials you're using, we can say where you can put it on a building. I think there's some good aspects here in terms of not covering up existing architectural features, not removing architectural features to put a mural on. Those are things we can handle, but when you actually get down to do we or do we not put a mural of the Dukes of Hazzard or the mural of Gnome riding a unicorn carrying an American flag, that's stuff we cannot get involved in. If a building owner wants to paint something like that, who are we to say that they can if they go through the proper process?
So, so I get this straight, are you indicating that there's already a mechanism to handle it?
It's not a very good mechanism. I don't think people are aware of the mechanism. I know that in talking to people who are advocating for murals, they seem frustrated because they are under the impression that they can't, and I don't think it's been adequately conveyed to them that there is a means to do it, you just have to follow the process. And hopefully, as people become more aware of the process and become more comfortable with it, both from a BZA, a staff, and the public perception, it might work. It might not, but that's where we are. That's sort of the middle ground before doing any additional ordinances. We have something that we have duct taped together that at least 2 occasions has worked.
And I would say, basically, you're being a member of the BZA, you have firsthand experience of how it does work.
Right.
And what the process is, just for clarification.
Right. And
Okay.
and I can speak, I mean, when Lydia's house, we had a very healthy debate over murals when Lydia's house was presented. And afterwards, the consensus was that having them come before the BZA under the variance from a painted sign on a building seems to allow for both the murals to go forward and for the ability for the city to impose some type of oversight in terms of materials placement, the stuff that
Size and everything
the
else.
size, the stuff that we can regulate. So if there is anybody out there that wants to put a mural on the side of their building, whether it's a large bird, whether it be Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny playing poker, there is a means that they can apply. We won't regulate content, but we will regulate at least the location, the size, etc.
So going back to the incident down there at Carter and Mills when they was rehabbing that building, and I think somebody complained to the building department and they were forced into a position of taking action. I finally got, I looked at it the one day and I thought, well, it's a temporary thing, plywood over those windows, you know, and so it was, you know, they're going to take it down. It was the idea of making that plywood look good until they got the windows done because they was doing construction. But see, I need to think this over because I didn't know, to be honest with you, I didn't know there was a mechanism to address this.
Well,
And
that would be it's a variance. That's what they're doing. They're just coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance because it doesn't meet the requirements. It's no different than I want to make the building 10 feet taller. They come to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance. What was done at Lydia's house was not painting it onto that building. They ruled that was painting onto a separate piece of material that was attached to the building temporarily. It was not actually on the building.
Okay.
Those were to be removed. The thing with BJ's Restaurant, those were architectural murals that depicted the history of, I believe, people harvesting weed or brewing or whatever. So it's associated with that particular restaurant. The challenge with murals, in my opinion, this is my opinion, Mary, is that if you allow those, it's exactly what Chris says. For one thing, you can't regulate the content. Once you say they can put a mural up, you can't regulate the content unless possibly nudity or something like that. Now, some people may like a picture of, like I said, to give the example, you could have the Aryan race, they don't want to put a picture of Adolf Hitler. And how do you say no? Or how do you put a picture of the Klan on the side of the building and say no? So it gets into more just than saying we allow a mural on the side of the building.
I guess what I'm hearing, and I think we need, I was going to think about setting, I'm not so sure I want to recommend addressing this, and I'll tell you why. To be quite honest with you, and it's my fault, I didn't know there was a mechanism for this. And I'm not sure that you open that jar, is in fact Pandora's box. So I think we need to think this over for a while, because I'm not so sure we wouldn't make it worse.
I would think that
And if there's a mechanism, then so be it.
I mean, there is a mechanism now, and people who are encouraging murals, at least I've been informing them of the mechanism, because there is a frustration. I mean, there is a lot of genuinely good group of people that want to use murals as a way to beautify the city, that is not going to be these outlandish hypotheticals.
Okay, well,
And we would only look at it on the facts. So for the horrible hypotheticals to occur, a lot of stuff would have to go right for that. And the question becomes, it's just like anything, are you preventing good things from happening because you're scared that there might be a potential for bad? And is there a trade-off in doing nothing? And I think that when you have organizations that are willing to step up and donate money and time for murals, and genuinely good people stepping up to want to do it, I think it's in the city's best interest to explain that there is a mechanism in place now, and to allow them at least to go forward with what they're proposing. Mm-hmm. And if we do end up with a horrible, you can paint over it at some point. It's not permanent. So my view is we have a mechanism in place. Let's encourage people to do it, to use it, and we'll keep the horribles where they belong.
I mean, that sounds good. And it's my fault, I didn't realize it, and I think it gives time to digest it and get the word out. And what's the old saying, running up the flagpole, see you salutes it. But I think that's probably the best way to handle it. If there's a mechanism to do it, then let's let the mechanism work, and if it doesn't, then we'll readjust accordingly. Okay.
I would just ask, so you've had 2 requests so far, both of them have been granted, and there were no problems?
There were no problems.
Okay.
Nobody spoke out against it. And again, it's premised on the belief that murals will go up, one, where they're appropriate, because it's an expensive undertaking, and most people are not going to put a mural on. I know Ms. Simpson was concerned about murals in residential neighborhood, and that's a concern, but there's very few surface areas that would accomplish what they're seeking. They're primarily in commercial areas along Montgomery Road or in our little business districts where it might be appropriate to identify those business areas. Again, the property owner would have to be on board with it. So you would have to have the property owner as well as the people wanting to put the mural up.
Okay.
So a lot of it has to go right, but I don't think we should stand in the way for allowing it to happen.
Right.
Would there have to be a public hearing
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be
with
ZA.
neighbors notified?
Yep.
Okay.
Neighbors notified. It's a variance, as Jerry said. It's a variance. There's notification. It is neighbors are notified. Anybody can attend, anybody can speak out, and at no point has anybody come forward and spoke out against the two applications that we saw. That's not to say that it can't happen in the future, but it's been my experience that the mechanism, for however cumbersome or how jerry-rigged it is, it's working.
I would tend to agree with Chris. I mean, to keep the mechanism coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals is even though it's a little bit cumbersome, it accomplishes it.
Right.
You know, it accomplishes everybody notified that this is going to be, looking to be a mural on XY building or whatever, and everybody sees what it is. They have an opportunity to speak, voice their opinion for or against, and the BZA, takes all that into consideration.
Okay. And the other thing too is there's concern about the condition of the mural. That's a property maintenance issue. So just as anything with like peeling paint or anything, condition of the exterior, that can be addressed as well.
Right through the building.
Through the building and property maintenance code.
Yep.
So there are mechanisms to both allow for it and to also address any of the concerns that the public might have.
Okay. So
It's
if
just
they-
that it's cumbersome. It's in various different parts where you have to piece it all together to accomplish it.
But it's doable.
It's
And
doable.
it has been doable.
It has been done, it's doable, and I would encourage if anybody has a mural that they're interested, follow the process, contact the property owner, if the property owner's on board, file the application to the BZA, or to the building department for the painted sign, have it rejected, and then go to the BZA for the variance. It might be, it won't be immediate, but it is the process to go through if people are interested in doing a mural.
And it sounds, as you say, it's working.
It's so far. Yep.
All right. I would agree. If we monitor it and just keep it on our radar, what's going on, that's okay. And I would just say, to say there was a letter from Deborah Simpson that was addressed to city council members dated June 10th, 2019, and that's also in your packet. I hope everyone had a chance to read it versus bringing it out right here. So for the record, we do have that information. Okay. Any comments? Other
No,
comments?
I think we ought to let it go and see how the process works.
Yeah. And with you being on BZA, Chris, if there is a problem, I would just request you let
Yep.
us know, and then we can review it, and take whatever recommendations that need to be done to eliminate the problems if there are some.
Right.
But apparently, as you said, it's working well, so.
Yeah, I think the main problem is people don't know that this mechanism is available.
Okay.
They immediately think that the city's anti-mural,
Okay.
and I don't get the sense that that is the case. It's just a very cumbersome process because we don't have a pure mural method.
Right. Okay. Any other comments?
Sounds good.
All right. I have nothing else. We don't have any absent members.
Motion to close.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Oh, well, I was going to say we won't.